Most people don't realize how deeply wired we are for predictability. From a young age, we're trained to seek routines, follow patterns, and fit neatly into expectations. That sounds like discipline, and in many ways it is. But over time, it becomes a trap. Predictability becomes more than just what we do. It becomes who we are. We repeat the same behaviors, have the same conversations, and think the same thoughts day after day. It feels safe, it feels efficient, but here's the truth most people ignore. Predictability makes you easy to read, and once people can read you, they can control you. Staying unpredictable starts in the mind. It's not about suddenly becoming wild or impulsive. It's about breaking free from the mental loops that make you easy to predict. When someone always knows how you'll react, they can steer you, disarm you, or worse, disregard you. Whether it's in relationships, negotiations, or even in your personal growth, being predictable puts a ceiling on your power. You may not notice it right away, but you start becoming a background character in your own life. You become the person others expect you to be, not the person you're capable of becoming. Think about it. When was the last time you surprised even yourself? When did you respond in a way that challenged your usual pattern? Most people operate on autopilot because it saves energy, but that same automation kills your ability to evolve. Predictability becomes the enemy of growth. If your actions are always the same, your outcomes will be too. That's why unpredictability is more than a tactic. It's a mindset shift. It means questioning your default reactions, switching up your strategies, and refusing to let anyone, including yourself, put you in a mental box. Here's what's really happening under the surface. Your brain loves predictability because it reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty feels like danger. But to grow, you need to get comfortable with uncertainty, not reckless chaos, but intentional, thoughtful disruption. And that starts with mental flexibility. If you always wake up and think the same way, approach challenges the same way, or interact with others the same way, you're already losing your edge. You're becoming a character in someone else's story rather than the author of your own. This is where the mindset of unpredictability becomes powerful. It's not about being erratic, it's about being adaptable. You start noticing the moments where a different reaction, a bold move, or an unexpected silence could shift the energy. You realize that predictability isn't strength, it's vulnerability. People can plan around you, they can tune you out. But when you're unpredictable in a grounded, intentional way, people pay attention, they lean in, they take you seriously because you're not following the script they had in mind. And that's the key most people ignore. Staying unpredictable doesn't mean you lack discipline. It means you're using your discipline to stay dynamic. You're not doing what's expected just because it's expected. You're choosing your moves with precision, keeping others on their toes and yourself fully alive. Because in a world where everyone's trying to be consistent, the ones who stay intentionally unpredictable are the ones who stay in control. Unpredictability often gets misunderstood. People either avoid it because they associate it with chaos, or they try to fake it by being random, impulsive, or erratic. But that's not power, that's noise. The truth is, real unpredictability isn't about being wild, it's about being intentional. And the #1 rule to staying unpredictable isn't what most people think. It's not about reinventing yourself every week or shocking people for attention. It's about this: don't be consistently predictable, be strategically pattern breaking. Let's break that down. People live in patterns, we all do. We create routines, behaviors, even speech habits that form loops. These loops are how others begin to make assumptions about us: what we'll do, how we'll react, what we'll tolerate. When someone can predict your moves, they can manage you. Even if you're trying to lead, grow, or stand out, if you're locked into a predictable cycle, you're quietly giving away power. You become easy to anticipate, and what's anticipated loses its impact. But here's the shift. Unpredictability doesn't mean destroying your structure. It means building in flexibility. It means knowing your patterns well enough to break them before they become cages. The most powerful people in the room don't just do the unexpected randomly. They do it with timing and intent. They know when to pause when people expect a reaction. They know when to speak when silence is the norm. They know when to pivot when everyone else stays stuck in the loop. Think of it like this. If someone watches you closely for a week, could they map your next step? If so, it's time to get more strategic. If your habits, your energy, even your way of thinking follow too linear a path, others will start running mental scripts on you. Oh, he always says this when he's challenged. She never pushes back. They always play it safe. These are patterns. And patterns are leverage for other people. Breaking patterns doesn't mean abandoning who you are. It means refusing to become a caricature of yourself. When people expect your next move and you give them something slightly different, still rooted in your truth, but just enough to throw off their expectations, that's when you stand out. That's when you shift the energy in your favor. You're no longer reacting on autopilot. You're steering. That's control, and this rule applies not just in how you interact with others, but how you deal with yourself. Even your own mind starts running predictions. You get used to being the calm one, the overthinker, the nice guy, the avoider. And once your identity becomes that predictable, your growth flatlines. So the pattern you need to break isn't just external, it's internal. Surprise yourself, respond differently. Flip the switch on a story you've told yourself for years. This kind of unpredictability isn't reckless. It's precise. It's the art of keeping yourself unboxed and others off, balanced just enough that they're always paying attention. You become harder to manipulate, more interesting to listen to, and more influential in any room you enter. It's not about constantly changing who you are, it's about choosing when to bend, when to flip the script, and when to hold steady so your next unexpected move has power behind it. Most people don't apply this rule because it takes awareness and courage. It's easier to run the same play every day. It's safer, but that safety has a cost. Predictability becomes a form of invisibility. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to ignore. So if you want to stay sharp, relevant, and in command of your presence, don't just be consistent. Be pattern, breaking on purpose. Most people ignore the rule of unpredictability because they've been taught to fear it. From school to society, we're constantly told that success comes from being consistent, stable, and reliable. And there's truth in that. Consistency does build trust, but what nobody talks about is how that same consistency, when unchecked, turns into rigidity. It turns into predictability, and that's exactly what strips people of their power. The very thing we were taught to master becomes the thing that keeps us stuck, easy to read and easy to control. People don't ignore unpredictability because it doesn't work. They ignore it because they misunderstand it. They assume it's about being unpredictable for the sake of attention, or about losing control and acting on impulse. But true unpredictability isn't chaotic. It's strategic, it's precise, and it takes more discipline, not less. Most ignore it because they haven't been trained to see it as a skill. They see it as a threat to stability, when in reality, it's a necessary ingredient for growth, leadership, and influence. You've probably heard the phrase, "don't rock the boat." That's the mindset people carry without realizing it. Stay in line, do what's expected, avoid conflict, be agreeable, and for a while that works. It makes life easier, less risky. But over time, it also makes you invisible. The world starts to put you in a box based on your patterns. And if you never break those patterns, if you never challenge them, you stay in that box, even your potential becomes predictable. This is why so many people hit a plateau, not because they lack talent or drive, but because they've become too easy to figure out. Others know their limits better than they do. Their boss knows they won't speak up. Their partner knows they'll always fold in arguments. Their friends know they'll never take a risk. The result, they get overlooked, underestimated, and underutilized not because they can't be more, but because they've stopped being surprising. And here's the irony. Many people want to be seen as leaders, creatives, game changers, but they approach life like clockwork. You can't inspire people if they can finish your sentences before you even speak. You can't lead if every move you make follows the same tired script. Influence requires presence, and presence requires unpredictability, just enough to stay interesting, sharp, and mentally agile. Another reason people ignore this rule is because they're addicted to certainty. Predictability feels safe. It gives a false sense of control, but in today's world, the real danger isn't uncertainty, it's stagnation. The people who rise, who influence, who evolve are the ones who can shift gears when the situation calls for it. They know how to keep others guessing in the best way possible. They're not controlled by habit, they control the pattern. To embrace unpredictability, you have to let go of who you think you're supposed to be. You have to stop clinging to the comfort of always being the consistent one. That's why most people ignore this rule. It's not because they disagree. It's because deep down, they're afraid of what it would mean to change. They're afraid of disrupting the identity they've spent years building. But sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. When you start becoming just a little less predictable, not for show, but for growth, you activate a different energy. People start watching again. They listen more closely. They reconsider what they thought they knew about you. That's when influence begins. That's when you reclaim control over your story, because the truth is, being consistent will make you dependable, but being unpredictable will make you unforgettable. When you become predictable, people stop paying attention, not because you've lost value, but because they believe they've already figured you out. That's the silent danger of predictability. It doesn't just limit your growth, it shrinks your presence in the minds of others. But when you stay intentionally unpredictable, you gain something powerful, psychological leverage, and that leverage shifts how people see you, respond to you, and remember you. Think about the people who hold your attention without even trying. The ones who walk into a room and you can't quite pin them down. They're not loud, they're not showy, but something about them makes you pay attention. That something is unpredictability. You don't know exactly how they'll react, what they'll say, or what they'll do next, and that keeps your mind alert. That's leverage. It's not about intimidation. It's about maintaining a mental edge that makes people take you seriously. We live in a world where attention is currency. Everyone is competing for it, and yet, most people give away their own presence by becoming too predictable. They walk, talk, and act the same way every time. People tune them out not out of disrespect, but out of habit. You can't inspire curiosity if you never surprise anyone. You can't lead if people already know what you're going to say before you open your mouth. Unpredictability forces others to engage with you in real time. It demands attention because it doesn't allow assumptions. This is especially important in conversations and relationships. If someone knows your default reaction, they can emotionally manage you. They'll say things just to trigger a response they've seen before. And if you always deliver that same response, they'll stop respecting your presence. But when you're unpredictable, When your reactions are thoughtful, not rehearsed, you become harder to manipulate. People start approaching you differently. They become more cautious with their words, more intentional with their tone, because they no longer assume they have you figured out. Even in leadership, unpredictability plays a critical role. Great leaders don't react the same way every time. They read the moment. Sometimes they challenge, sometimes they support, sometimes they go silent. That variety isn't random, it's intentional. It makes their presence dynamic. Their unpredictability keeps people focused, respectful, and, most importantly, engaged. Because people never feel like they're just hearing a recycled speech. They feel like they're in the moment with someone who's alive and aware. This doesn't mean you become inconsistent. That's the mistake many make. They think unpredictability means instability. But it's not about abandoning your principles. It's about using your consistency as a foundation, not a cage. When you know who you are, you don't need to react the same way every time to prove it. You can shift your tone, your timing, your approach because your identity isn't fragile. Your adaptability becomes your strength. And when people can't predict your every move, they stop underestimating you. They stop assuming you'll respond passively. They stop putting you in a box. You create space to be seen differently, to be treated differently, and to influence differently. That's what psychological leverage does. It gives you silent control over how people experience you. Most importantly, this kind of leverage isn't about dominating others. It's about creating space for respect, curiosity, and real connection. When people don't know what's coming next from you, but they know it will matter, they stay engaged. That's presence. That's power. That's how you shift from being just another voice to being a force. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being unstable. It means being intentionally flexible. And that's something most people miss. They think mastery comes from doing the same thing, the same way, over and over. But true mastery, the kind that makes people pay attention, respect you, and never fully predict you, requires adaptability. The ability to shift gears without losing who you are. That's what separates those who plateau from those who continue to rise. When we think about the people we admire, the leaders, artists, athletes, thinkers, they all have one thing in common. They're hard to pin down. You think you know their next move, and then they surprise you. Not randomly, but strategically. They break their own patterns just enough to stay sharp, stay in control, and keep everyone around them guessing in the best way. They know when to stick to their rhythm, and they know when to completely flip the script. That's not luck. That's intentional flexibility. Most people avoid this. They get attached to a formula, something that worked once, a version of themselves that was praised or accepted, and then they keep repeating it, hoping it'll keep working forever. But here's the hard truth. When you rely too much on the same approach, people stop expecting anything new from you. And when they stop expecting anything new, they stop engaging. You become part of the background, even if you're doing everything right. Mastery means knowing yourself so well that you don't need to cling to your old moves. You can evolve without losing your identity. You can pivot without panic. You can surprise others without disconnecting from your purpose. That's what real unpredictability looks like. It's not wild swings or personality shifts. It's subtle, intentional changes that show growth, awareness, and control. It's when people can't fully predict your next step, but they know it'll be meaningful. Let's be real. Most people crave comfort, not growth. And comfort demands repetition. It says, play it safe. Stick to what's familiar, don't take risks. But growth demands discomfort. It says challenge your rhythm, surprise yourself, step where you haven't stepped before. That's where unpredictable energy comes from, not from chaos, but from a mindset that refuses to be stuck. When you master intentional flexibility, You become more than just interesting, you become magnetic. People are drawn to those who can shift without losing focus, who can lead with calm but also fire, who can be reflective one day and assertive the next. That contrast, that ability to stretch yourself and still stay grounded, creates a presence that's impossible to ignore. And it's not just about how others see you. It's about how you see yourself. When you allow yourself to break patterns and adapt on purpose, you start discovering new parts of who you are. You stop living inside old labels. You stop fearing change. You become more fluid, more capable, more awake. That's what makes unpredictability not just a tactic, but a tool for personal evolution. So if you want to stay relevant, if you want to stay in control, if you want to keep growing, don't chain yourself to consistency. Anchor yourself in purpose, but let your methods move. Stay flexible, stay strategic, stay sharp, because the moment you become too predictable, you stop being dangerous. And the people who stay dangerous in the best way are the ones who keep evolving, keep surprising, and never stop breaking their own patterns.